This is Appalling News. I'm Paul Chato. Let's see what teachers at Taylor Creek Public School in Toronto did at their last PD Day on becoming anti-racist educators. They whetted their self-flagellation victimhood palate by watching a TED Talk by an American journalist who refers to Ibram Kendi as a leading historian. That's like saying cavemen invented the electron microscope. He claims race, as a concept, was invented in the 1450s by a Portuguese man named Gomes de Zurara, who also invented pudding in a cup.
Let me talk in particular to the white folks for a minute. Once we understand that people who look like us invented the very notion of race in order to advantage themselves and us.
There are several things we have observed in this 23-second clip. First of all, he is white. The black community is so bereft of voices that they need a white man to talk on their behalf. Sorry, sort of like those movies where an inner-city black kid caught up with a bad element is saved by a skinny white woman.
Isn't it easier to see that it's our problem to solve? It's a white people problem.
No one is saying white people were not complicit in the slave trade, but when African tribes enslaved other African tribes and seemingly continue to do so, it is clear that it's not solely a white problem to solve unless you're trying to squeeze donations from a guilty white audience. For you, that is the problem you're trying to solve. Making white people feel bad for being born against their will in an unfashionable colored sheath is very big business. It is only a business that takes place in countries that are or were predominantly white, who enshrined freedoms often through a tortuous self-examination process, but freedoms nonetheless. Ironically, this happens only in countries people actually want to come to. It never happens in countries where people want to get away from. Next, quotes from this expert in infantilizing people of color were posted, and teachers eagerly added their sycophantic responses. Hopefully, they didn't wet their panties on the way to add their post-it notes to the flip chart. Under race as a tool to divide us and to prop up economic, social, and political systems, an eager communist wrote, "Capitalism is inherently racist." Absolutely. We all know people of color are segregated from buying Pillsbury crescent rolls. Under "If I'm not joining the struggle, then I am complicit in the struggle," a teacher wrote, "Strong feelings of responsibility to make a change. Yes, we have to make a change to the conditions and oppression on people of color by joining together for change." We are impressed that you wasted a whole post-it note for that contribution. And finally, race is not a thing biologically. It is a story people decide to tell. What nonsense will they be coming up with next? That men can breastfeed? The one thing we can take comfort in is that when these sheets of paper and comments are recycled, they will come back as toilet paper. The big news, of course, is the ongoing campus protests. From our vantage point observing these schools who for decades have been centers of anti-Israel sentiment, hostile student unions voting regularly for boycott, divestment, and sanctions against Israel, anti-Israel teachers with communist connections and their unions, the yearly hosting of anti-Israel events such as Israel Apartheid Week, Jewish students regularly being harassed on campus, first-year students being recruited by SJP, and the usual protests whenever confrontations did flare up between Gaza and Israel in the past, we are utterly shocked at the spontaneous reaction to the latest war in Gaza. It caught us completely off guard. Where did this come from? Hopefully, Appalling News will investigate the historic seeds of how this protest came out of nowhere. Stay tuned. And finally, 6 trustees of La Leslie, Great Britain, are on the verge of suspension because they object to a policy requiring breastfeeding support to be open to males who want to breastfeed. In UK law, the term mother includes all those who have given birth however they identify. By maintaining a single-sex service, La Leslie does not exclude trans men or non-binary individuals even if they don't use the word mother for themselves. But as is now the trend, male-bodied individuals hyped up on hormones who are now able to excrete some vile fluid out of their titties, but not enough to satisfy a nursing fly, are insisting on being included. But as we always say here at Appalling News, men make the best women. This is Appalling News, and that's the way it is.